Good morning, it's Monday the 8th of June, you're watching Euronews, and this is Europe Today. Welcome to the program, I'm Stefan Grobe. Coordinating European support for Ukraine and increasing pressure on Russia. Those were the topics of a meeting in London last night, bringing together the leaders of Britain, France, Germany, and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Euronews' Sasha Vakulina will have the latest for us. Armenians voted in a parliamentary election seen as a test of the government's efforts to forge a peace deal after a crushing military defeat by Azerbaijan 3 years ago. The election was closely watched by Russia, which had tried to intimidate Armenia ahead of the vote. We'll go to our correspondent in Yerevan. Peace in the Middle East remains elusive. Iran's supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei authorized a full-scale resumption of war and a painful and decisive response to Israel's strikes against Beirut. We'll speak to a top United Nations official on the situation in Lebanon. And it's kickoff day -3. Millions of football fans around the world are awaiting the FIFA World Cup Tournament 2026 in North America, the biggest ever. Do you think you already know all about it? Well, wait for our story. But first, the three most powerful leaders in Europe met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenski in London last night to talk about the war situation. The meeting with Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz came just days after Zelensky suggested direct talks with Vladimir Putin to end the war. For the latest, I'm joined in our studio by Euronews' Ukraine correspondent Sasha Vakulina. Good morning, Sasha.
Morning.
So, what can you tell us about the meeting this morning?
Indeed, the most important thing that it is coming, as you said, following this open letter that Volodymyr Zelensky sent to Vladimir Putin asking him to have a meeting for the first time since Russia started its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Now, the leaders of France, Germany and the UK did not position themselves as mediator, but they did issue a statement, and we're going to take a look at it, supporting the idea of the direct talk. This says they supported the proposal for a direct dialogue between Ukraine and Russia with active US and European participation to bring about ceasefire and support further negotiations. Now, we have to say that this is yet another thing that Russia rejected, including the direct talks, the ceasefire, and the participation of the EU in any sort of negotiations. Stefan.
Now, while Zelensky is in the UK, EU Enlargement Commissioner Marta Kroes is on her way to Kiev.
Yes, indeed, in this big political momentum for Ukraine with the opening of the first cluster for Ukraine's EU accession. Marta Kroes is in Ukraine, where she's going to be meeting with the government of Ukraine and the Speaker of Ukrainian Parliament to press for reforms now when Hungarian veto is finally lifted. And this Ukraine is about to take the biggest step yet on its EU path. The closer Ukraine moves towards the EU, the more desperate Russia becomes, Marta Kroes said. And with that desperation come more threats, more missiles and more attacks. Now, EU Enlargement Commissioner will also meet with the EU staff who are there in Ukraine's capital and who have been living through Russia's relentless bombardment, specifically over the past couple of weeks when Moscow has been using dozens of ballistic missiles to attack Ukraine's capital and other cities.
All right, Sasha Vakulina, thank you so much for that update. From Ukraine to Armenia, a landlocked country in the South Caucasus where 2.5 million people were called upon to elect a new parliament. The election was closely watched by Brussels and Moscow. Ahead of the election, Russia had stepped up economic pressure on Armenia and threatened to cut off its cheap oil and gas. Not a comfortable situation for the outgoing pro-Western government. Let's head over to Armenia's capital, Yerevan, where our correspondent Jane Witherspoon has the latest for us. Good morning, Jane. Good to see you there. What can you tell us this morning?
Good morning, Stefan. Well, yes, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has declared victory in the elections here. He celebrated in the early hours with his civil contract party, and he called it a historic victory, the win. Now, over 60% of the votes have been counted. It's not an absolute win, but it is, of course, a majority, which is all he needed, a sound 54% of those votes counted. Clearly, Armenia is turning a page in its rather tumultuous past couple of decades. Now, the Georgian Prime Minister was the first leader to congratulate Mr. Pashinyan on that win after just a few votes were actually counted. And Mr. Pashinyan's main opposition, of course, was the Russian billionaire, the Russian-Armenian billionaire, Samvel Karapetyan, who actually ran under house arrest. He'd been accused of trying to overthrow the government here. Now, Mr. Pashinyan, this has been a real test for him, these elections. Obviously, Armenia has been coming under strong economic pressure from Moscow. And of course, there was his election pledge to also deepen ties with the West. It will be really interesting to see how Russia responds to this win. I have caught up a little earlier with political commentator Richard Giragosian to find out his views.
These are pivotal parliamentary elections in Armenia for two main reasons. First, despite the geopolitical context, the real issue here is on sustaining the momentum of the government's policies in terms of normalizing relations with neighbors and diplomatic engagement with Azerbaijan and Turkey. The second real importance of this election is it is Armenia's third back-to-back genuinely free and fair election, which is an underestimated element of the need to strengthen and consolidate democracy in this region. What is expected is a recently re-elected Prime Minister of Armenia going first to Moscow to reassure Russia that Armenia remains committed to the Eurasian Economic Union. Russia, in turn, will ease restrictions on Armenian imports and exports. Yet Russia, over the longer term, does rely on economics and trade as structural leverage over Armenia. Nevertheless, this isn't about the EU versus Russia. This is the Armenian government's delicate balancing act.
Jane Witherspoon in Yerevan, thank you very much for that report. Now, in Albania, the political unrest continues. Yesterday saw national protests for the seventh day in a row as Albanians demanded the cancellation of a luxury real estate project linked to Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Protesters are accusing the government of selling out a protective wildlife area to the Kushner-Trump clan. Prime Minister Edi Rama defended himself in an interview with Euronews' EU editor Maria Tadeo on the sidelines of the EU Western Balkans summit last Friday. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
Albania is in a hybrid war. There are a lot of images that have been spread in the social media of projects that are not related to the project, of dying flamingos, of depressed turtles, and of all this. It doesn't exist. So we have to talk about reality. When the project will be presented, of course, we'll show it, and we'll show it proudly. And I'm sure it will be a project that will change a lot in how Europe understands environment in general. Because this is the aim. It's not the aim to take a piece of land and to do speculation. The aim is to build the most exclusive and the most environmentally precious
some people take issue
destination.
With the exclusive too.
Why?
Because it becomes an elite on land that belongs to the Albanian people.
The land belongs to the investors. They have bought it from the privates.
And that's part
number
of the
one.
issue.
Number one. Number two, we are not anymore in the bunker of Enver Hoxha isolated from the world. Mm-hmm. We are part of the world. Number three, exactly because these investments come, countries change. But there is no chance that the progress in Albania and the projects in Albania will be defined by street protests. This will never happen, not under my watch.
Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama there speaking to our EU editor Maria Tadeo. When the Pope makes a trip to a very Catholic country, it's barely newsworthy. But the week-long papal visit to Spain is quite a challenge. Pope Leo visits a deeply polarized country where conservatives are turning on the church. The reason? The American-born pontiff wants to showcase the Catholic Church as an advocate for migrants and asylum seekers. For more on this, let's cross over to Madrid now, where our correspondent Maria Munoz Murillo has all the details for us. Good morning, Maria. On that polarization of the country, did the Pope make any comments?
Good morning from the Almudena Cathedral, where the Pope is going to hold a prayer this same afternoon. Yes, he did. First thing he did this Saturday when he arrived was to have a meeting with the King, the Queen, Pedro Sánchez, and leader of the opposition, Alberto Núñez Feijóo. And he mentioned the polarization in politics, and he also mentioned his aim to reconciliation. He thanked Spain for the diplomatic position the country took in the armed situations we have around the world right now, and he also thanked the country for the efforts to gather the peace around.
Tell us about the atmosphere. Do the Spanish love the Pope, or was the reception lukewarm?
I would say Spaniards are thrilled with this visit. After all, it's been 15 years since we have a Pope here in Spain. It was Benedict. Pope Francis, he had plans to visit Spain, especially the Canary Islands, where there is a huge immigration crisis. Actually, Pope Leo is going to the Canary Islands. This is seen as a tribute to the late Pope. And people are happy. The city, Madrid, is crowded. We were yesterday in the Mass that was celebrated in Cibeles, and there were around 1.2 million people, a lot of young people, and they were singing, they were laughing, and they were loving having the Pope here.
All right, Maria Munoz Murillo, thank you so much for that update. Now, regarding the Iran war, Pope Leo has repeated appeals for peace and dialogue. For now, in vain. Indeed, peace prospects are not looking good. The situation remains tense, especially in Lebanon. Israel and the pro-Iranian Hezbollah keep attacking each other, and over the weekend, Iran has issued an evacuation warning to all residents in northern Israel to immediately leave. To discuss the situation further, let's bring in Hervé Lecoq now. He is the deputy head of the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Lebanon, UNIFIL. Good morning, sir. Thanks for coming on the show.
Good morning, Stefan. Thanks for having me.
So I got to ask you this first. UNIFIL has been in southern Lebanon for nearly 5 decades, yet the area has repeatedly become a battlefield. If your mission's core purpose is to help maintain stability, how do you respond to critics who say UNIFIL has failed?
Well, it's very important to understand what the mandate of UNIFIL was. It was established in 1978 to monitor the situation at that time. The situation has drastically changed as UNIFIL has changed. The main change was in 2006 during the Israel-Lebanon war, after which the Security Council decided to really strengthen UNIFIL, but to keep a mandate of observing, supporting the parties implement the resolution that the Security Council itself had adopted. The implementation of the resolution, disarmament from Hezbollah, withdrawal of Israel from the Lebanese territory, strengthening of the state authority of Lebanon, and respect for territorial integrity was the responsibility of the parties. UNIFIL was there to support that process.
So both Israel and Hezbollah have accused UNIFIL at various times of not doing enough. Now, when both sides are unhappy, does that prove your neutrality, or does it suggest the mission lacks real influence on the ground?
Well, I think we are here to support the political process most and for all, and UNIFIL is not in charge of that political process. Right now, it's the US that lead the negotiations between Israel and Lebanon, and we're here to support that as soon as an agreement will be found. There was already a cessation of hostilities agreement found in November 24. We have supported this, in particular the redeployment of the Lebanese armed forces to the south, verifying that Hezbollah had vacated the south and helping the Lebanese armed forces to clear the south of weapons that were not under the control of the state. So we are here to support a process, but when the process fails, then it is not for UNIFIL to substitute itself to the parties and force an agreement that the parties have to implement.
And finally, give us your sense of serious peace prospects. Are Israel and Hezbollah ready to stop their attacks?
I think it's very difficult to see now a change within a few weeks. There is always the chance that the political process, the political will of the parties will change things on the ground. I think we see this under the US negotiation that are currently ongoing in Washington, but it's a very complicated process. It's been going on, as you pointed out, for many decades. It's entangled with the regional situation that you pointed out that has, again, yesterday demonstrated that the solution is not there. It is linked with a long history, internal difficulties within Lebanon between the government, state authority, and an armed group, Hezbollah, that does not abide by it. So it's a very complicated process. At the same time, the component of a settlement are known. They have been set out by the Security Council in 2006, and the only way to move forward is to apply that resolution 1701 from the Security Council.
All right.
To go for peace.
All right. Hervé Lecoq, Deputy Head of the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission in Lebanon. Thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it. And now to the global event that millions on every continent are waiting for. You're not sure what I mean? Then listen to our Jacob Yanas.
The largest World Cup in history will kick off this Thursday across US, Canada and Mexico. With 48 teams playing 104 matches, fans are bracing for a 5-week marathon. And yes, your reporter is excited to watch the games, even though my own team failed to qualify and saved me the inevitable heartbreak. But I tell you one thing, if you look past the grass, the game is also being played by corporate accountants. And yes, I know, it might not sound sexy, but I've got some really interesting numbers for you to check out. You know, just in case your team did not qualify either. So, FIFA proudly projects a $30 billion cash injection for the host nations. Yet, analysts warn the impact will be practically invisible. And for an economic giant like the US, it's a drop in the ocean, with most hotels reporting bookings way below forecasts. And the real winner here is Mexico. Because its economy relies so heavily on tourism, the money carries far more weight, potentially boosting its GDP by up to 0.5%, with cities like Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Mexico City feeling it the most. And spanning 16 cities across a massive continent with no high-speed rail networks, fans and teams must rely almost entirely on planes. And this flying circus means transport alone is estimated to generate over 7 million tons of CO2, and total emissions could hit 15 million tons, making it the most polluting tournament in sports history. Finally, FIFA has adopted American-style dynamic pricing, letting ticket cost fluctuate based on real-time demand. So, group stage tickets have climbed to $700, while premium seats for the final top $10,000. So you see, overpriced tickets and hotels, expensive flights and record-breaking emissions. Sounds like fun. But let's be honest, if your team wins, you won't remember any of that. And if you decide to save your money and still follow the games, remember that Euronews is here to give you live updates. And the best part? It's completely free. Alright, so who are you going to support this time?
Jacob Yanas there for us. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us this morning on Europe Today. If you want to continue the conversation, contact our team at europetoday@euronews.com. In the meantime, stay tuned for more news live here on Euronews. Take care and see you soon.